Welcome back, everyone, to Issues of Faith. Happy to have with us Joel Reynolds, lead chaplain at Alive Hospice. Thank you for talking about this. And as we went to break, I said, I want to talk about how we as a culture deal with death now and how we used to deal with death, and are we doing it wrong or right? How are we handling death now, in your opinion, and where can we improve?
Yeah, I think what we had for a long time before the advent of hospice was a movement to where we were doing clinical interventions, even if it brought more pain. It may sustain life, but to what ends, to what quality? And really, in most cultures, death was done within the family, and it was done within the home. And so in the advent of modern medicine, we took that away and we brought people to the hospital, and they were dying in the hospital and they were being over-radiated or over-medicated, and it was bringing a lot of distress at end of life. What hospice has done has tried to go back to what we did as a culture. You do it with your family, and if hospice does their job well, and if Alive, and I think we do this very well, is we're educating and supporting the family, that there's 24-hour support available, but we're not there with them 24 hours a day. The family does the care. We educate them, we support them, we get them what they need, and we respond in a timely manner when they need it. But it's really allowing the family to love and to serve and to support that patient, that loved one at the end of their life. And so hospice has brought it back to what we did as a culture. You died at home. You died surrounded by your loved ones. If possible, you died in your own bed. And so what we do is we allow people to do that. And I think that's more natural with that. And it brings dignity, which I think was lost for a very, very long time, the dignity of allowing someone to die. I want patients to get whatever help they need. If they want to go into to do something curative or do some type of intervention that would allow them to sustain their life, or perhaps maybe even find physical healing, by all means do it. Because Alive is the oldest. We're going to be here when they come back if they need us. But truly, if somebody says, I've done what I want to do, I don't want to go to the doctor anymore, I don't want to go to the hospital anymore, I don't want lights and bells and things dinging and in and out of my room, I want to be in my room with my family looking out at my backyard, then we help them do that, because that's dignified, that's compassionate.
And so if somebody out there is watching and they know someone who has been diagnosed with something that's terminal, and they don't know what to say. I mean, I think that's a concern for a lot of people. What would you recommend? And it's maybe even farther along now than just diagnosed, but they're in the final weeks, days, whatever. How do you, not as an expert chaplain, what would you recommend for a normal person talking to someone else? How do you approach that?
You approach it by showing up. And truly, as you said, I'm not an expert chaplain, I'm not a professional chaplain, I just do this for a living, but truly, I just show up. And even our nurses and our social workers and all the members of our team, we just show up. What are your needs today? Where are you at today? Well, the same can go to somebody who's just concerned. Often we want to walk into a room and we want to fix things. And hospice is not against fixing things, but it's there to fix what really matters and to help what really matters. And so when somebody cares for someone, it's maybe they're related to them, it's a neighbor, they know them from church, and they want to show up, just show up. Don't feel like you have to have the answers. I certainly don't. One thing I promise all of the patients that I work with is that I don't have all the answers. And if I did, I would share them, but I don't. But what I do promise is I'll show up and I'll listen to you. I'll hold your hand. I'll pray with you. We'll sing if you want to. I'll bring communion to you if you want, if that brings you comfort. But I'll be here, or our team will be here. And I think the same should be said for anyone who cares for somebody that's giving this diagnosis, this life-limiting prognosis. Just show up. You don't have to have the answers. What's going to matter most to that person is that you come in the door and you're willing to sit with them.
And so for now, let's say someone is watching who has been diagnosed and they have not a lot of time. How do they wrap their arms around it? What would you recommend for that person? How do you make this not terrifying, painful, whatever their worst fears are? How does that person, in your opinion, go from here?
Well, I think, obviously speaking to their family about what their wishes are. Very often things can get complicated at end of life because they haven't had the conversations with their family, because talking about death is an uncomfortable conversation. Nobody wants to do that at the 4th of July barbecue or over Thanksgiving, but they need to be having those conversations and being realistic about if things change or this progresses or this is the diagnosis I've been given, I'd like to be at home. I'd like to be surrounded by my loved ones. And getting a hospice diagnosis, talking with my physician, and working with a team to come in and provide that is probably the very best steps. But also maybe talking with your clergy about funeral plans, talking with your family about, do you want, interventions that may sustain life, but to what end, And so being honest and realistic with yourself, but also with your loved ones, so they know what to do. What we see with a lot of our patients is they have told their families, this is what I'd like to do. And as the family may struggle with it, they're saying, I'm following the wishes of my loved one. I'm following the wishes of what dad or mom said, and I want to be respectful of that. I would do it differently, but mom wanted this, and we're going to be mindful of it. And then as the hospice team, we support them in that, and we give them the resources they need, and we show up and provide the interventions that they need to help that end-of-life process go as comfortably as possible.
I think I'm most inspired by the fact that your faith is strengthened by this. Mm-hmm. So you feel like there is something after this.
Yes, sir.
And you felt that, I guess, that's your faith, but it hasn't been deterred by your job, by what you do.
Yeah.
Has it been strengthened?
Absolutely.
And why?
One thing I always joke about is, I have my master's of divinity. I went to seminary to become a minister. And one of the things that seminaries don't do very well is train us to walk into rooms or into difficult conversations. If I started a seminary, I'd have a lot of different classes than the ones I took because it's very overwhelming to walk in. But what I've seen from so many people is I've been strengthened by their strength. I've met so many people who have said, I'm at peace with this. I'm sad. I'm going to miss my family. I'm going to miss my loved ones. But I believe that this isn't the end and there will be a reunion. And so we focus on that. We find strength in that. And that gives me strength in my own faith. I've seen people die peacefully. I've been there with them. I've held their hand. I've been praying with them as they took that last breath. And to see them make that move into the next part of their existence, to me, is not only a beautiful thing, it's a spiritual thing. And it's been encouraging to me. So for me, I've found strength from the strength of the people that I go and meet.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have a little bit of time left, 2 minutes left. So specific things that chaplains do. You talk about the non-denominational part, but what else do you want people to know there as far as Alive Hospice, what it is you're doing when you come in?
What our chaplains are always going to want to do is do two things for a patient. We're going to perform and we're going to provide. We're going to perform when it's in line with our own traditions. If I meet a Christian patient and they would like scripture read or certain prayers to be prayed or communion to be given, I'm comfortable doing that as a Christian minister myself. I provide for patients that maybe they come from a Roman Catholic tradition and they need a priest to come in and do certain sacramental things, or they need a rabbi to come to be in line with their Jewish faith. What I'm going to do is I'm going to provide that for them by connecting them with local clergy that can do that. And so very often I'm working the phones to find a priest that can make a visit to offer an anointing or a prayer or provide communion or a final confession for a patient that may be close to death. And so we work in those lines.
And how much work is done after? So we've talked pretty much exclusively about how you minister to the person who's dying. What about the people that are left behind?
Alive Hospice has a dedicated staff of grief counselors that we provide to any loved one. Doesn't have to just be next of kin, but family members, friends, neighbors even, who have struggled with the loss of a loved one. So they can come in for grief counseling at any one of our sites all throughout the 12 counties that we're in here in the mid-state. So that allows them a continued support line and lifeline to them as they deal with grief. At Alive, we don't try to fix grief because grief isn't something that's fixed, but we will sit with them. We will work with them. We'll give them tools and help them find strength in their own life and their own faith to move forward.
Joel Reynolds, thank you for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the time.
Lead chaplain at Alive Hospice. Thanks to you. Thanks to you who watched. Have a great day, everybody.